Female mate selection definitely has an impact on the overall, sort of statistical distribution of male attributes and strength and power and all these things. And I'm very sympathetic to this argument about dating apps. As a tall, handsome, smart, successful guy, I certainly saw the other side of that.
Don't criticize yourself that much.
Of that perspective,
and modest also.
Don't be that modest.
But I will point out though that those trends were actually in place long before the apps came along. The declining fertility rate, decline in marriage rates, increase in marriage age, etc. were well in place before those apps came about. It has exacerbated it, and of course, as someone we're talking about the way Twitter and YouTube and algorithms change and shape the dialogue and our politics and what we think about each other. Of course, the same kind of algorithms are at work in these dating apps and are affecting the dating and mating markets. And frankly, it was my analysis and exploration into that phenomenon, which has gotten me to where I am now, 10 years later after my divorce in 2009, pulling on the same threads, trying to figure this stuff out. And here we are talking about these big meta issues.
Safety is, in my opinion, the number one issue that is driving a lot of those things. Getting married later on, so you mentioned protecting and providing as like a masculine role versus what was the other one? Nurturing and caring. Yeah. Nurturing and caring as like the more feminine role. And it used to be back in the day that you had a parent to watch the kids. Times change for a variety of reasons, but ultimately I think it has to do with the sphere of safety that we've created. And you can take a look at how that manifests now in the modern era with safe spaces, with censorship, with offense culture and victim culture. We have become so incredibly safe that people have become soft wads of cookie dough that are terrified and victimized by stubbing their toe.
I remember
this selects for the biological success of people who historically would not likely be having kids.
In school, I mean, think of it, elementary school, on the playground, girls and boys playing. This is like my personal experience. I remember seeing this stuff. A boy would make fun of another boy and start talking him down and saying, you're terrible, you're blah. And then other boys would start to laugh and stand around. And then the girls would flock to the kid that was making fun of the other kid as if he was becoming the protector of the herd. And they're like, this guy, through his mean hierarchy or whatever he's doing, is now creating a safe place for me to raise, like he's going to protect us he's going to demean others to grow his strength. And that's like deeply ingrained in what I am. I think that's just part of the hierarchy of being animal. And now they're trying to algorize that out and say,
algorize. That's a new one for me. There's two things happening here. One, most men, I believe it might be most, or at least close to a majority of men over time, have not reproduced. And socially enforced monogamy is a way to solve for that problem. Then add in no fault divorce and discouraging women from, seeking out men who are protectors and providers and becoming protectors and providers themselves is exacerbating this problem. But it's also given us this contrast where we've moved out of the socially enforced monogamy into back to the Wild West, the state of nature when it comes to mating. And of course, not all guys are going to reproduce at this point. There's going to be a lot of guys left out. Socially enforced monogamy was a way to bring men into society, to give them a reason to live, a reason to build and create.
Well, that's interesting. So I think you're right. And I think if we combine these ideas, basically, there was a period where you typically wouldn't see weaker men as successful as you would today. I mean, physically.
Right.
And in fact, in many instances, mentally, right. Because life was a lot harder and people didn't survive conflict. And if you couldn't make it, but now these people are doing really well. But you make a good point. They're also struggling on dating apps. The age of a male who is a virgin is getting higher and higher, meaning I think the last data was a few years ago. Washington Post released a study that men under 30 were like a third of them were virgins. And so what we're seeing now with dating apps is that it's typically a small handful of men getting all of the women, which is like a reversion back to
the state of nature.
And I think resources don't matter as much as they did before, especially in this ever-changing landscape that is more influenced by social media and Hollywood. And I think a perfect representation of that is Mr. Bill Gates. If you look at Mr. Bill Gates, there's stories and accusations of him having a very hard time getting women at his own company. So if you're talking about one of the richest people in the world at the time, even having that kind of trouble, going off hanging and partying with Epstein, but that's another story there. But a man with all the resources is having a hard time even getting a girlfriend at Microsoft. So and there's a bunch of Microsoft jokes we can make here, but I am above that.
Thank you, Luke.
I'm above that. Not really, but
at the rest stop, you see.
but it is an ever-changing dichotomy that is very interesting, that I think is still changing, and it's very hard to kind of classify even what's going on right now.
We are in a crazy state of change. We are between two fixed points. We are in what we call a liminal period, right? We had a very fixed circumstance. You had culturally enforced monogamy, no fault divorce. Everybody gets married. Everybody has a couple kids. Everybody works. That has dissipated. We're now back into a new sort of explosion. We don't know, or implosion, and we don't know where it's going to settle. It's not looking good for the average guy. And what happens when the average guy is disgruntled? And then there's a lot of them. And I think China is looking down the barrel at that. Traditionally, what do you do with your surplus men? You send them off to war, right?
And they have a lot of surplus men in China. They have a huge population disparity where literally
you caught that too.
Whatever.
Right?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
I said it yesterday.
You know what I'm saying.
This is why I love multiple languages.
Good thing we're not on TV.
I speak multiple languages. Okay.
True, just
say it in Polish.
English was not my first language. Doesn't matter.
I got
okay.
it. I love
Now you're making fun of a minority.
Yeah.
Over here.
I'm a person of color, according
to
Google.
Exactly.
So you better watch out, Jack. There's men literally competing for women on the streets in some cities in China, trying to get one date with one girl. And they have entire competitions where their entire town comes out to see which man will get to date this single woman. So on that kind of a level, this is all because of the kind of eugenics population control agenda that Rockefeller and Ted Turner pushed and promoted with China, that made them have one-child policy that prioritized specifically males being born, and a lot of baby girls were either aborted or terminated or smuggled out of the country, because culturally in China, the male takes care of the family. And if you have a female, and if you're only allowed one child, you're not going to have someone that will take care of you. So that made a huge, the Rockefeller policy on China, the one-child policy, was absolutely horrible to say.
When you combine that effect in China and their history of like sending men to war with like spoons, butter knives, and sticks up against guys with machine guns.
They're doing that in Pakistan.
That's what I'm saying, dude. The Chinese, I think, I might be wrong on this, but in the Korean War, I do believe they stormed over the border with nothing but like sticks and spoons and butter knives, and they went to fight and battle like that. They are willing to do whatever they can. And if you're going to have surplus men in an imperialist environment with aspirations for growth and dominance, I mean, that's an
interesting situation for Taiwan.
Well, for
especially
all of us,
during a weak presidency that literally does the opposite of what he's supposed to do during military conflict, like he did in Afghanistan.
So are we looking at, we talk about Thucydides' trap. We talk about just China as a growing military power. But is the real reason war breaks out is because China looks at the U.S. and says, we got too many dudes.
If we're stuck on Earth,
they're frustrated.
Thunderdome.
If we're stuck on Earth,
well, it's not too many. It's just like, hey, look, what do we have to work with here? Oh, look at that. We got all these dudes. What could we do with them? They're useful.
Space travel. That's the thing. If we're stuck in...
this is why Ian's on the show,
This is why behavioral sync, and this is the reason behavioral sync went the way it did, is because they couldn't spread out. They were stuck in an enclosed space like we are on Earth. And if we keep growing like we're growing and we're still stuck here, either these people that want to slow the population growth or war, I think, are the two inevitable
people have
options.
been making this argument.
But space travel...
Send them to Mars.
Yeah, let's start expanding. Although now Imperial...
It's cheap to do that, right? You just like a slingshot from down here.
You could get a magnetic slingshot and then another reverse magnetic slingshot in the Martian orbit, so it slows it down and catches it, and then sends it down on an elevator with a graphene tether to
until somebody from the Outer Rim comes and destroys it. I've been watching that show on Apple. I read the books.
What if the policy was instead of the one-child policy, it was the one-child second astronaut policy? So after your first kid, the second kid was going to go in the astronaut program, and we're like, we got a kid, send him to Mars, colonize.
Amazing, dude. They were raised in space. You send your second kid up into orbit to have him be raised up in Mars.
If you're going to spend like $100 million to send somebody into space, you don't want it to be like the knucklehead of your family that didn't have any other
That's the problem, is it's too expensive. That's why the space elevator is fascinating.
Yeah, but
it's too expensive with rocketry.
There's two ways you can look at it: quantity or quality. And quality would be like, let's get 10 great astronauts and send them up there to build this. Or you can be like, or 100 dumb ones. And like, if each of them only does 10% output, they won't.
They make it a week.
They make it. But, you send enough of them up there and they're going to colonize.
By the way, I am never going to space.
I'm not either.
Really?
Ever.
What about orbit?
I might do what Shatner just did.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely not going to Mars. I'm definitely not going out there and being trapped in a tin can in the middle of a cold, dark void.
With the current
no.
With the current setup, like with the current environment. You mean?
Right. If it was like Tom Swift style, where it was like a rotating cylinder, like Elysium, right, where it's like this amazing Earth-like atmosphere with like
Millions
trees
of
and plants
people.
and lakes and stuff, maybe then.
You diva.
What about on a spaceship in orbit just to float for a while?
No, hold on there a minute. Hold on
I
there
got
a
a
minute.
comfy bed for that.
Let me ask you something though. So the colonists who are leaving the comfort of their countries where they had a system in place, an economy, said, I'm gonna get on this boat. It's gonna take me 3 months to maybe get to a place I've never seen before, but people tell me it sounds good. A lot of people
that it's paradise.
are gonna die on the boat from various illnesses, diseases. Scurvy is gonna affect them really bad. And then if they make it, they're landing on the shore where there's nothing.
Right.
Barren land.
Right.
And they were like, yo, sounds good.
Right. Well, A, how bad was life? B, that's like the promise of a potential paradise. And don't forget that many of the people that made that journey were looking for a new Zion. They were American Zionists looking to create God's paradise on earth, and they weren't going to do it in established civilized Europe. They had to go do it in the wilderness of North America. Now, look, dude, if you're trying to tell me that, like, I understand that the process of being in a spaceship going to Mars, terrible. The process of being on a boat sailing to the New World, also terrible. Landing on Mars, terrible. Landing in the New World, paradise. Everything you want. Game.
What was paradise about it?
There were animals and trees and lakes and
Resources,
rivers and resources and food. I mean, I know they didn't figure it out right away, but there's plenty of food and game and all these things in a huge expanse. Space, red dust, voids, vacuums.
I think they're just people that got the explorer bug.
Totes.
I think there's still a lot on the planet we need to explore.
Well, a lot of people were facing religious persecution,
Yeah.
and that's why a lot of them left. You got to understand, Europe.
All the Trump supporters facing political persecution.
Exactly.
Mars,
yeah.
There was plagues, there was diseases, there was war,
Famine,
there was lack of food. So anything other than that was better for a lot of people. That's why they took the risk of going overseas.
And think about it too. Once it was established here, why do people immigrate to the United States? Because it's better. Immigrating to Mars is worse.
But
How
look,
do you know?
this is what bugs me. Let me
Have
tell
you been to Mars?
Let me tell you.
I saw that Total Recall.
When I was like 18,
Mainstream
we got
media
hard.
propaganda.
When I was like 18, we had hard winters in Chicago, so you can't skate very much in the winter. It sucks. That means everybody knows, like, you get rusty, you get tired, you get out of shape. And so we knew some people who had a private warehouse with a mini ramp in it to skate on. And I was like, guys, we need to do this too. We need to have our own indoor space. If we all pitch in $100 right now, we got it.
Tim, the
And you know
original
what-
communist.
You know what they all said to me? Do it, and then once you have it, I'll think about joining.
Yeah.
And I said, the only way we get it is if we work together right now to do it. And they said, nah. And then they did nothing all winter and sat around just getting fat and lazy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stand that. Yo, if you want to find a new place or a new world, I'm not saying it's you. I'm saying for the people who do, you can go to Mars and put in the work. Don't expect someone else. I'm talking with immigration.
Yeah.
They all want to come here now because a bunch of people risked life and limb to cross an ocean. I think it was like 20% of people on boats died.
Yeah.
They finally get here, and there was conflict, and there was crisis, and there was some bad BS that went down. A lot of it, mind you. And then they built a civilization. And now it's so beautiful, everybody's like, I want to go there. And and screw their laws, screw their rules. I'm going to go take whatever I want. No, do the work, put in the work, earn your keep. Help keep the system that you want so badly to keep functioning.
Tim, universal health care right here. Earn your keep.
I'm absolutely, this is the thing. I'm totally for universal health care, but not the way Bernie Sanders wants to do it.
Yeah.
And the other problem is you get a government that has control over your healthcare, and then all of a sudden they're doing vaccines by race,
Right.
which is what they tried doing.
Right.
So anyway, I digress.
Yeah, I think that we need to.
People should be explorers, maybe pioneers.
We can resettle the American interior. There is
Alaska.
so much to do there. There's so many places to
Let's go settle Alaska.
Yes.
And I think at this point, it's not only cool, but like inevitably necessary if we want to avoid war to expand into space. I know it seems like a daunting task to terraform Mars, but we can do it. We could terraform. We could set up civilizations on the moon. You know, there are ways if you really take time out of the equation.
We have to send massive cargo payloads. So just over the span of several years. so that when we finally send the first team, they show up with like 20 years worth of food and fuel and building materials, and then they can build biospheres and domes and stuff like that. But ultimately, I'm not convinced Mars colonization is a real thing.
I don't think so either. By the time we can terraform Mars, we could just fix any climate issues here, terraform wherever we want.
Yeah, we'll be terraforming all
Mars
of it at the
has no
same time.
magnetosphere.
No magnetosphere.
It has a weak one.
So it means I can't use my compass.
Sorry, guys.
It looks like
it means you'll get bombarded by radiation and solar particles, and then you'll just not enjoy it.
Again, this is why no one has gone
yeah.
past the Van Allen, what is it? The
Van Allen belt?
The Van Allen
No,
belt.
I don't think that's true because we went to the moon.
Did we though? Just kidding. Are we allowed to say that?
Maybe. I don't know about that.
Crap. I'm just kidding. I take all
Not
that.
that Stanley Kubrick didn't make art about it as well, but apparently we did go to the moon too. Yeah.
But why haven't we been back, dog?
I think it was just expensive and not getting anything out of it.
Yeah, this one's always crazy to me. It's like, how did we get to the moon? Dude, we literally built a rocket. We have tons of rockets. Rockets are not hard, and then you just do basic math for like how to get there. Why haven't we gone back? Because we didn't get anything from doing it other than wagging our finger at Russians.
True.
We don't have that.
No, there's a lot of military capabilities on being on the moon.
Sure. And
China's looking at going back on the moon to launch military installations there. So I'm with Jack on this one. I agree.
Oh my God!
I can't believe this is happening. High five. We actually agreed on something.
Probably underground, you'll want to colonize on the moon.
Yeah.
So you can avoid that.
like make it a Death Star.
That vacuum.
Like build a gigantic ion, cannon or laser beam.
It looks
in
like
one of the craters.
That looks like a small moon.
It looked like Mars was ripped open at some point. There's that big scar, and then a bunch of its core came out onto the surface, and then all that iron core came down as iron oxide dust, so you have all that red dust. And that's why the magnetosphere has been weakened, because it's missing a lot of that iron that was in the middle. So we've either reintroduced the iron into the core or try and, I don't know, Elon thinks we can nuke the cores and jumpstart the...
You know what they say about real estate? Location.
Dude,
location.
and the people
Mars sounds like a terrible
the
location.
people that came to the U.S. first are the great ancestors of the landowners and all these rich people.
Right. So actually, I think this is look. We can talk all day about iron oxide and cores and all that stuff, but I think the real issue that I wanted to bring up is that pioneer spirit still within our hearts?
Yeah, I think it is, and you find it in the entrepreneurial spirit in the United States.
But
people building and creating and inventing and exploring new technological frontiers.
But they did that in London. They had a big city. They had universities. They had science and math and industry.
Bezos and Musk are a good example of
no, but where are the people
James Cameron. James Cameron with the submarine and all that. But
I'm talking about building cities.
Yeah.
Like all we have are cities in decay. Where's anyone to be like, I have just bought land and I have staked my claim,
Wasn't
and now
there a
we're.
company
I think that happens more than we
in Texas.
Yeah.
Did you guys see that
Weird
company
little
that wants to
city.
do the weird city of like leftists utopia, whatever?
No, I have not.
We got.
How are you going to criticize the lack of the pioneer spirit? And the first example someone gives you, you're like, those weirdos. No, you got to celebrate them.
Super weird.
I'll tell you this: if all the woke people want to go into their own private city, like, yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
They have it. It's called Washington, D.C. We
just sealed the deal on Ferdamistan.
Oh, there you go.
We officially
Fantastic.
got it. And we're gonna put up our own little street names.
Do it.
And we're gonna start building stuff out and just, we want to get an FFL. Luke's adamant about
1,000-yard range.
We're not gonna do that.
Come on.
We can, but I think we shouldn't. It's extremely difficult considering like we're not in the middle of nowhere. It's a big property, but if we're going to be setting up Ferdamistan, meaning we got to have a lot of facilities and buildings, then I don't think we can allocate,
Nothing's impossible.
It looks like the Chinese are building
We'll
islands.
figure it out.
Time and money.
Yeah,
dude.
We'll figure it out.
Building islands is
Well,
another
I'll tell you this:
step forward.
colonization is happening, and it's China, and it's happening for a lot of the same reasons. It's overcrowded. People want to find a better place to live, so a lot of Chinese citizens are going out to other countries and setting up and expanding. So I think we were talking about this with Africa, with South America. We've talked about it quite a bit. It's not like a militaristic operation. It's just literally someone in China being like, it's crowded, I want work. Hey, here's an opportunity. There's a company that's hiring in this country that's building bridges or selling oil or something. So they move out there with their families. And then you end up getting these pockets of Chinese nationals living in all these different places.
I remember
that's a testament to the American power where people aren't doing that.
I remember being
Do it here.
in Kenya, Zimbabwe, and Somalia, and I was astonished at how many Chinese people I saw all over the place running around there. And I had a lot of local Africans being like, this is the new wave of imperialism. They are the new colonizers. The Chinese have come in and they're taking over resources. They're taking over infrastructure. And they're also building a lot of infrastructure there. So
Ports and harbors all over the place. And by the way, some of the best Chinese food I ever had was in Ecuador. What do you know?
Weird.
But what kind of Chinese food was it?
Szechuan.
Was it like real, like, like diced chicken with rice or whatever and the spices?
I've never been to China except for Hong Kong, so I can't really tell you. But it was pretty good.
I got a funny life lesson for people. You know what? I went to Thailand, and I'm with this guy I was working with Vice, and I was like, I want to eat real Thai food. And he was like, oh, you want to eat real Thai food, right? And I was like, yeah, real stuff. None of that Americanized, heavily sugared and fat stuff. He's like, you want to eat like the real Thai people? I was like, yes. He's like, come with me. And we go down to this little, there's like a little corner of a building on a block, like a residential area, and they've got these big shutters that have been opened, and there's a little kitchen. It looks like a regular old kitchen. And I walk in, and he orders in Thai, and you know what they come out with? Steamed chicken and rice.
Yeah.
That's it. Literally just steamed chicken and rice. Yeah. And I started laughing, and he's like, what do you think people eat? Like, Americans are so spoiled. Everything's got sugar, fat, salt, spices. Regular people around the world, they're eating rice and meat.
Dude,
I went to Brazil.
If they're lucky,
they eat. In South America, there's a saying that they have rice and beans for lunch and beans and rice for dinner.
I noticed that when I was down there.
Yeah.
Chicken,
I went
rice,
to Brazil,
and beans, basically.
and I said
everywhere.
the same thing to my Brazilian friend. I was like, I'm gonna eat like a real Brazilian, and he's like, all right. And we went, and it was just steak. Yeah. They give you like 2 steaks, and then everyone sits around it, and you cut them, and you take it with rice. But there is one thing they do: they sprinkle cornmeal on top.
Oh,
that was different.
I think what you're also arguing is just what a wonderful bounty of authentic food that we have here in the United States. Thai food is like, it's very. I mean, dude, you can get papaya salad in Thailand on the street, which is one of my favorites. I love that.
Sticky rice on the street.
Yeah, well, and then you can just get it right here in the United States too. I was in Thailand too, man. I ate street food all the time.
But what I mean is like these specialty meals that we think of, they're like.
Oh, yeah, like pho, like a
yeah.
bowl
When you
of
go to
pho.
these countries, for the most part, regular food is just regular food. It's
yeah.
not, it's not some fancy. Like I was like, I want pad thai, and he was like, okay, it's kind of.
Well, what's regular American food, dude? Meatloaf and mashed potatoes.
Yeah. Burgers.
Hot dogs.
Instant mashed potatoes.
Instant mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
I think
corn.
peas and steak with mashed potato, peas and a steak or something.
Murder burger?
I don't know anybody that eats peas.
Really?
That was my favorite food as a
You don't
kid.
eat peas?
Peas are
They
good.
sell them at stores.
I
There's cans of
I
them.
care
People buy
not
them.
for the pea.
Oh, they're a little sweet.
Delightful.
Cancel me now.
Yes.
It's good for babies.
Do you guys remember that New York
Don't
Times
need
article
teeth
where
to
they
chew
said
'em.
mix peas into your guacamole? And then there was like a revolt where the left and the right came together, like with that fist meme. Like, no,
I'd try it. It sounds not
not
bad.
happening.
sounds terrible.
Murder burger. Are you a vegan?
Hell no.
Oh well, that's
crazy.
I don't understand
He's
what
the
you meant by
opposite.
the murder burger. Okay,
Mickey
good,
D's.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
Well, I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
Basically,
Pakistan is
expansion.
up on the map up there. And we're talking about McDonald's
because
in
you-
Ecuador.
You mentioned
avoiding World War
you,
III.
you mentioned China sending in their men to go fight with sticks and stones. They literally did that.
They did that, yeah.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.